Yeah, I can.
So I think so we were trying to uh, build, tables, etc. But so we were just trying to add controls, etc. But we are not actually trying to understand certain elements. And like rightly, you also were asking like for old requirements, etc. Whether we'll have any technical document or how do we approach towards design, etc. Like so,
Mm.
there is actually there are like some how to build. Uh, what we call the best app. So best UI, how do we design, etc. There are like certain elements towards it. So let me see. So we'll just today I'll just try to explain how do we for any kind of scenarios whenever we get any requirement. And now we are like unorganized way we are trying to see we are trying to understand various controls, etc. But that's not going to help us in building actual applications. So first of all, if we have to build any some good UI, so we need to follow some specific process, etc. So what's the SAP recommended process? We'll try to see and how to, irrespective of the requirement, how to organize the information and how do we build as per the client needs as well. So for that, we generally have specific uh, approaches, but there are like many elements of it. But these are like from developer point of view, there are like different things will come into picture. So today, I'm not going to cover all this, but so we'll just talk about how to build great app. Okay. So our idea is from the stage of requirement. So how do we organize all the information so that we have everything available to us so that we'll not miss out any requirements. Certain times requirements will be, it could be existing requirement or it would be some migration projects or it could be completely, random use case altogether. Okay. So
Mm.
we SAP recommends certain design gates. They call it as design gates. So if you're for SAP Labs officially, so I have worked for some of the official SAP Fiori apps. Also, I have designed for SAP Labs. When so there they follow some nice approach of design gates. So I am trying to provide one such approaches. So there's see every client they'll follow their own. Some people follow agile practices, some follow their own methodologies, etc. But there is no hard rule that you have to follow this. But this is one such practice which SAP recommends, and I'm just trying to suggest that we can follow these practices as well. So they categorize everything into three phases. One is as discover phase, and another as a design phase, and then develop phase. So far, what we are trying to learn and understand is all about develop phase. Like we got a requirement, now we are trying to code using UFA. That's it. So we are always talking about development phase, but before to this, there are like two other phases. So are we building the right application? So most of the time, we spend most of the time in development phase, and we ignore discover and design phase. So what exactly these are is, see, we need a sound use case. See, it's not about just writing the logic and getting it executed, but is it usable? See, after we deliver the application, how long it is being used, whether it is useful to anybody or not. Most of the cases, 80% of the software applications which are built, they'll have very short lifespan. Within 1 year, nobody is going to, use those scenarios. Either it will be discarded. 80% of the applications. So either because customer feels that certain functionality is missing, or they'll feel that it is not as per their expectation, or they'll just feel that it is not relevant to their context as on date. The main problem for these all scenarios is we are building always application for one specific user in mind. So whoever is talking to us for the meeting, for the requirement. So we design their point of view. So only their point of view we'll try to see and will not generalize. If that guy moves out of that project, or if the guy who is business, some other new one replaces, he feels the things are very messy around. So we always have to build generic. Even Fiori apps, why they provide design gates approach is they do not build for one customer, like only for retail or only for one particular. They build for all the customers. So they keep all the solutions generic. So it can be applicable to any kind of HR. It can be applicable. It can be applicable to some CRM also. It can be applicable. So any sort of scenarios, it can be applicable. Fine. So let me directly show you what all tools we use and how do we get into it. So, first, when we get a requirement, we have to classify into categories. So simple use case or medium use case or complex use case. Okay. So how do we identify whether it is a simple or complex, etc. Any use case beyond, if see, generally in 2.0 they used to emphasize, but they are now not emphasizing it. But Fury has they used to have a maximum of 1-1-3 approach. So what is this 1-1-3 approach is? So, so one use case, okay. So one application, 3 screens. So this is max. So all Fiori applications. See, this is not applicable to custom Fiori application. So in custom, if customer asks us to build any levels, we can build. When I say one use case, if you're trying to solve a problem of filling a timesheet, or if you're trying to solve a booking and a sales order, or your any problem you're trying to say, if it is if it having multiple use cases, try to split into different applications. This will call they'll call it as microservice architecture. So microservices, when I say, it's like breaking up the whole different into different services. Like one service is nothing but one scenario you they in agile they call it as story points and etc. Like all we try to do is we try to minimize the problem. So problem may be however complex, we'll always split into different tasks. So here all the tiles you see, there'll not be one single application which will focus on all. Always Fiori applications, if you see, notice on the standard Fiori apps, they'll have all approving purchase order is one, creating sales order is one, displaying order is one. So they'll have small use cases, collectively they'll form a bigger use case. Why is that? The reason being is approving people are different in our actual roles, and the one who actually creates are different. So they're like different people who will be using it. So unnecessarily giving all the fields on the same screen is actually time consuming. So if I have to do the start creating a record, I need not to refer to all other scenarios. It same applies to building application as well. So if you have one use case, just build one application and do not have more than 3 screens. So if you have more than 3 screens, it's like not usable. So they'll not be able to figure out what all fields are there, and they cannot actually make out of the use case. So main screen when you're building it. So that's the reason if you see flexible layout, they'll have master on the left and then detail page. Max you can have on click of detail page, again you can go back to one more layer. So max only 3 screens it's recommended to build. So always this is a boundary. It is for good design, we need to have one use case, one application, 3 screens as a approach. Okay. If you notice that it requires more, then you have to make it into a meaningful way. You have to split into 2 scenarios. So yesterday, I mean, we were trying to create tables, etc. Right? So I'll try to show you. We will take one typical customer use case, and then how we can break into requirements, etc. We'll say now, right? So once we are able to break down into multiple scenarios, suppose assume that have a scenario out here. Okay, so we have a scenario for L'Oreal brands where they have actually they are looking for they have lots of products around them, and to manage their products and to handle the sales of it. So how many products are being sold, and in a quarterly, what is the forecast of demand, customer demand, as well as the like financial health of it, like is it growing or is it reducing, etc. So they have certain use case. So in this case, uh, we notice that they are having two different themes around the requirement. So these requirements generally they can discuss for a couple of weeks, or certain times it even takes some regulations kind of things. It will take around 6 months around from the different organizations to get information clarity around certain requirements, etc. Most of the time requirements phase can extend from few weeks to few days to few weeks to few months, etc. as well. So they need some regular information. We won't get in a single shot. So they'll discuss in today's meeting. They might be discussing few requirements, and after a week or so, they'll discuss some more requirements. But for the developer, when they're building it, they'll not have any concrete way to construct the oral theme. So it will be very patchy. But we need to focus on gathering all this information and organize it. For that, SAP has some standard way. We have some certain standard templates that we call it as persona template. Okay, so persona template looks this way. So this we call it as persona template. So this is how the template looks, and standard way is like this is how all the requirements will try to fit into just like one resume. Will try to fit into one single resume. So what this does is it understands the user. Now, what are users? So when the requirement they are trying to discuss to us. Now, in this case, L'Oreal blends I'm trying to discuss. So what they try to present is they'll present it as a end user. Now we take a user as such. So random user will take it, and how they are doing currently their task. So if they are doing any task, so we'll try to understand what is their day-to-day job. So we'll just a random profile will take, and what generally they do we try to understand. So she works with chief facility engineer and technicians and admins. So who the end user works in general we'll try to understand, and we'll try to present these four categories. So if you're able to see this, so when we are getting requirement, we'll try to prepare this way. So these are like good to have. There is no reason that this is how we have to design, etc. But job response. See what are their activities. We'll try to focus on and what they want. So customer when they explain all of their, so we try to ask certain questions. So there are like different ways to ask the question. So how is the existing process being done? So if it is already the solution exists in some other technology and they are trying to move to SAP. So in that case as generally, or if they do not have complete the use case is completely new, they do not have any solution, and they're trying to tell us that this is how we are currently doing. Maybe take an example where sales reports are being shared across using an Excel. So every monthly they are getting the forecast. So these are the products which are getting sold in these vertical regions, and these are the fast moving products, and the volume required for in this particular duration is this so and so. So if they are sharing across in mails, etc., there are like a number of teams involved. There are like sales teams, they are they're like manufacturing teams, and then etc teams. So all these are like but currently whom are we focusing? So this application, so we have to keep only them in mind. So who will be using this particular scenario? It could be sales manager. Then we have to design, we have to take that sales manager as a candidate, and we have to understand their responsibilities. So whose job we are trying to simplify, we need to focus. So job responsibilities involves whom we are trying to focus on. So we need to ask, and at least what for if we are working for just one customer. So typically in this case, a couple of people, if there are like a couple of people involved in the team, we can randomly drop them a mail and we can ask certain questions. So sir, what are your expectations from this application? So how are you using, etc. So maybe we'll get certain feedback, or we can have a one-on-one meeting and we can understand their problem. So they might be saying it, sir, right now today, every monthly, weekly, we'll get around 5 to 10 mails from various sales departments, and we try to organize all the data, and we'll prepare one presentation out of it, and we'll use that in our monthly or biannual or quarterly meetings, and then we'll analyze the sales impact, etc. So this is how the typical scenario he has explained. Then we'll try to put those information into here. So how frequently they are needing this particular data, etc. So these all are very valuable points. So in this case, I'll take this example here. So she says that I am responsible for office and data center buildings. So she manages all the data warehouses or data centers, etc., of organization. And I'm responsible for multiple projects per week, and each project is tied to a specific building. So what they do is, like, in a week, multiple projects she'll be handling it, and each project, etc., is specific to one data center. Okay. And I spend more than half of my time outside my office, and but I also do work on my computer in the office. Maybe it's not this kind of thing will be there, but what here from this understanding is they are looking for some on the go solution, like mobile solution, tablet solution, as well as a desktop solution. So this is what the inference for us as a developers. So what they're saying, they spend half of the time outside, that means they need a mobile point of solution. So if it will be good if we can design using M libraries, etc., where the solution can be, all we need is specific to data center. If she's collecting all the data on the go, so beforehand, the data center, what's going wrong, or what are the stats, etc., required, etc. So those all things, etc., we can provide in the application. So this is a random example. So here it's about generic scenario. So then we'll ask what they want. So what are they expecting from the solution? It's not that always we should propose first. We should ask them. So they have explained that this is what we do. So I enter time once in a week on a project by project basis. So she's every building, whenever she goes, she had to book a time that she has spent 2 hours in this particular project. And for some other project she goes, she says in a week, if she's going to 3 buildings, she has to book time, etc. So this is how their job response. So what she's expecting is, I always need a project building number to record time. So her problem is, she finds it hard to figure out if she's going to 3 project build data centers, etc. So each of the buildings she has to key in, so where she has actually spent her active time. So it's becoming hard to locate her. So every time, okay, what is this building, etc., where is it? So this information she's not having handy. So it is actually killing her time every day. So whenever she has to go any place, so this is a blocker to her. So that is her need. She wants to easily locate the building number in order to record her timesheet. And I need to know the amount of time spent on project. Currently I take notes on paper. So she have because she her time gets disorganized. So certain cases and certain projects she gets stuck for so long, and certain places she gets stuck for a short duration, and she cannot keep track of it. So okay, I spent 2 hours, so she has to book 2 hours as time, and 3 hours at 3 hours as time. So she says she doesn't have a accurate picture of how long she's spending at a time, and she's not actually booking the right way of the time, etc. And she one more thing she's expecting is, I need the ability to record time instantly since I'm away from my desk most of the time. All she was asking is a mobile way. On a mobile solution do we have, is what she's trying to ask. So these are the 3 needs she was mentioning. One, availability of project building number, and another, how much time she's spending on a project, and third, a mobile application. So this is her requirements as per their understanding. So from these 2 scenarios, what are our takeaways is, we need to understand their main goals, and then what are their pain points. Okay, this is for us. This is from their point of view. What are they specifying it? We'll try to put their tasks in this generic way, and this is what their expectation will ask. So this is their summary and their requirements. So our application should fulfill this particular needs, not the job responses. We have to keep in mind, and then we have to design it. But we should not focus on job responsibilities alone, because today it could be a person, it could be a different person. They may not do the same task in a similar way. So always we have the needs are the one which we need to focus, and not more on the job responsibilities directly. It has its own way, but we should not design for one specific person in mind. So we should check the needs part only. Okay, so the main goal here, like, being the person who makes energy consumption decision, how to keep the balance between improving the energy efficiency and our working comfort, better management of actual time spent in each building. See, along with this, here we'll after discussing with multiple requirements, etc., we understand not only timekeeping, but why she goes to that building. Okay, why various other data centers she visits. So the key reason, so it is not articulated in the need section, but why actually this is like one part of it. The other part of being, so she makes a decision, the energy consumption decision. So the each data center, how much of workloads are there handling it, and how to improve the energy efficiency, and how betterly they can their time they can manage, etc. So this part is completely ignored in their discussion. So the main goals, like one more focus was spent on better managed actual time spent in each building. So all they're talking is better time management. Okay. So this we got it from some other requirement discussion, etc. Then when we actually see, they are looking at two point of views. One, uh, their time spent should be better, and why they are visiting each multiple projects, etc. The data centers, they have to reduce the amount of energy consumption. So how do we reduce the energy consumption, etc. So those all parameters they need to take into point. So we understand the pain points, and we break down into this pain point. So can't record time quickly on the go, so they are not able to book. The time entry is very complex and very time consuming, because project numbers, etc., they have to key in, so it is very time consuming. So need to view the weekly view of complete and incomplete entries. So they, as every week she changes into she visits different projects, so they need some weekly view of which all she has already entered the data, and which she has to update the records so weekly. And she needs the ability to enter it in bulk, so multiple entries she has to modify altogether all the more. So if we try to provide this point of view here, we are again talking about only one use case. So this use case we can build as one application, and other use case, energy consumption, we can build as a separate application, because these two are completely two different use cases. Maybe this use case is maybe they are looking at it later point of time. Then we can ask this question: so do you want us to suggest an application or solution which allows you to break down? Maybe they might say that no, we are already using different solution, so in order to take energy decisions, we are already we have a complementary solution. So I think we are currently focusing more on managing the timesheet, etc. Then we can consider these points. If they bring up this point as well, then we can probably suggest them, because this was mentioned but they did not mention. But what we are trying to do is, we are trying to ask them the question: so do you want us to build a solution to manage your energy decision as well? So that's how we try to add value add to their existing problem. So they haven't outlined certain scenarios, but we can better suggest them what all pain points they are looking as a solution. So we try to present any problem statement in using this particular template. So uh, if we have multiple meetings across also, we'll try to break down into bullet points, and we'll try to present it in a simpler form. So it should be always described in, however the big project, we should able to break down into 2 or 3 lines. So that's when we'll actual why they are building the solution, we need to understand. So how do we understand is using this. So for us, while building application, these 4 points we need to keep in mind. If we are providing a solution which solves all these 4 points, that means the product is usable. So they use it for the long run. So that's how we'll make it out, and we can break down into 2 applications, or whether we all the functionalities, whether what our customer is expecting, we are able to design or not, we can make it out. You're able to understand like why we are using a persona template, and why are we fitting all our requirements into a simple one page kind of template.
Yeah, I mean, this is more easier than writing up like 30 pages of functional specification document, right?
Correct. So there we get carried away. So we
Mm,
look at irrelevant information, but we try to build all the solution. See what our FS is, we try to build, but the problem is end user see view of that is completely different. We are not actually looking at who is actually going to use this particular application. Okay.
right,
So this actually, like, it's like a resume. So you are trying to
right.
think your business. See, if you are doing that role, so you are keeping yourself in that role. Okay. So you're noting it down that, okay, this is my day-to-day task. So the job response says that, okay, this is how I'm doing currently, and this is what I need. So the needs will say, this is what I need. Then when we are developing it, we're keeping in mind that, okay, why they are going to that building is because energy consumption decisions there she has to take. and what is the current problem she's facing. She's actually able to take energy decisions because she's her role, she discussed with chief facility manager technicians at admins. So from the admins, she had a meeting in the building, and she'll understand where the energy is, workloads are increasing. Maybe if uh, weekends, because of for suppose she belongs to some online e-commerce portal, etc., then they have some big billion day sale or something, then maybe they have a huge workloads, and then they needs a high demand, etc. So then the consumption can go very high, and she can do her job better because she knows how to get the information, etc. She doesn't have a problem in that at all. Okay, so but we still keep it. Why she visits the building, so we are trying to understand as one use case, but she asks that, no sir, that I can do it, but currently the solution I'm looking is not for that part, but for better actual management. But most of the time is getting killed. I go to that place, but the problem is every time I have to key in the timesheet entry, it kills me. After completing the job also, in a week I spend around 2 3 hours just to figure out, okay, where I have done, what I have done, and how much I have time spent. So if you remove that problem from her bucket, it will become her day-to-day job more easy, because she can, if what we have to do is, see, if now as a layman, if we are designing this solution to her, what we can suggest is we have to design a Fiori app which is using M library controls. So it will be mobile. So first point, can't record time, quickly on the go, problem solved. Because sometimes she is in her office, then she is using her desktop. If she is coming to any building, she might be using her mobile. Okay, on the mobile, if we give her option to in the mobile app, if we provide a mobile app, she can directly enter the timesheet. So one problem solved, right? Then second problem is time entry is very complex, very time consuming. What if we have auto populated all based on the location, or based on some by scanning a location, etc. So if we auto populate all the building centers wherever she's visiting it, so then the problem of remembering project building number, etc., gone, right? So suppose you have she in on a day, suppose they have 10 buildings, office buildings, and if you provide just a drop down of 10 buildings, so she can simply select one option out of it, right? So if you want to simplify more, we can give some just some what we call short names, etc., where she can, instead of project number remembering, she can description she can remember. Okay, 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 Mumbai location, building she can say some. If not, she can some Chennai location. So if you, instead of project number, if you can give a description, it will be more easy for them to key in the information. So we have to translate that into in a different way. So currently they have to remember the project building number. So it is very complex. But if you give it in a description of something, you are trying to solve the problem. There are like different ways to solve the problem. I'm not saying that you have to solve it in a very fancy way where you give a QR reader and then they scan it, then it automatically populates. No, we are not about talking at all very fancy thing. The minimalistic simple ideas alone will solve most of the use cases. Give a nice drop down where instead of a text box entering a project building number, give us the 10 options. It will be very nice to select okay, Bangalore location. When they select Bangalore location, we internally understand, we fetch what is the building number, and we'll try to auto populate for time booking, right? So that way we can try to solve second point. Third point is, need to see weekly view of complete and incomplete series. I think in the standard timesheet application we have seen, they are giving calendar and the whole view, week view only they are giving it. Okay, so if we have seen the my timesheet app, right, in the Fiori app. So we saw each weekly calendar they have given, and we are trying to book completely. So we can provide a timeline kind of view. There are like control called timeline, or we can use a calendar control in SAP UFI, which actually breaks down. Or what we can do is we can give a date range on the application, top of the application. When the mobile application they load, by default they can select by default it will show from today till last 7 days we can show. What I mean is like from today current date will calendar will show automatically, and it will show last 7 days dates. So by default whenever she opens the application, she sees only the last 7 days. So that is where she has to view. If she want to go for a different area, she can always select the back. So if you're showing an active week, need not to go back to specific. They need not to select a specific date and then delay her time. Directly, okay. When she opens the app, she sees last 7 days. Okay, Monday. Okay, I failed to fill it. Okay, it shows as blank. That means okay, I did not enter it. Okay, you can key in a few tabs. So you can select a day, then enter a description, save it, done. So she need not to enter other details. So once she selects it, so we'll using variant management, we can remember their selections as well. So frequently used, etc. We can store as well. And for entering bulk, like if she has to update for complete week, we can allow her to select Monday to Friday option, and then once she enters the description, same time we can automatically add it to all the time. So what we can do it is for the bulk entry problem. So we can give for first solution, mobile solution will solve first point, mobile controls, M library controls. And second problem, so I'll put it this way. So first problem, can't record on the go, mobile library, and time entry is complex. So we'll give you some combo box. So where you'll have a drop down with all building values. So this will, instead of project number entering, they'll select Bangalore, Mumbai, etc., Chennai, etc. So this way they'll, instead of remaining a building, they'll select a description, and then if you have a specific name to it, in Bangalore to centers, etc., they might give you some, each center might have a name, and we can probably show Bangalore, um, ABC center, etc. So we can define multiple names, etc., in this way description, and behind the scenes we can actually auto populate the building number, etc. Maybe that is what currently being used, and we can design it this way. And the third one is need to view weekly view. So for that we can use a date range selector. Date range selector will actually, by default, it will show last 7 days. So this is comes under design. So which one to use? We are always free to use what are as a developer, etc. We have to make a call. So what control, what UI solution will simplify the problem? Nobody is going to ask. So they'll always give some inputs from their side, but we need to see what's best for them. Always the customer doesn't know. Uh, I mean. What's the technology can offer, so we have to look around, and there are like multiple ways. By default last 7 days we can show, and Monday to Friday we can show. So on Monday we can say, probably we can say, so we can say this way, Monday, Tuesday, etc. So the whole week we can probably display the last every week. And here we can give a time axis where 10 a.m., and then you can consider this as a 11 a.m. And the description around, we can probably give an option to multi-select here. So we can give a select option. Probably we can visualize it in an Excel better. So our application can look it this way. So the moment they logged in, will be showing two dates. Today's date would be set up. So from and till date, etc. And then the moment they select it, so this is where they have the so day, time, etc. So and so forth. We can just have it this way. So we can have different hours of the day. and they can fill the description, and we can give something like here, selection. So if they want to, here they have asked for bulk entry. So if you see first problem of building for problem etc in order to solve, so there's a date range, and then we'll select straight away here. um, at one option we can give as project building. Okay, here we can probably give a drop down which will shows automatically they can select Bangalore location etc, and the description etc. In this case we can give a selection here, so selected or not. So multiple options they can select. So if they want to fill, so they can tick box multiple selections, and they can select the entry, and for a whole week if they want to fill the same data for the same location etc, they can select multiple entries, or we can use some save as template. So frequently entered data we can use give them as a option to save option. Here on the below we can say save, and then save as template option. What this does is whenever they launch it here automatically, you can open template, or we can give some option where automatically all the fields will be auto populated, and they can just enter what they have done here, description. Okay. um, um, had a meeting with architects. Okay, and maybe at in a different location they might had with chief design design officer etc. So what are the tasks they're doing it etc, we can give a rough design this way. So here we are whenever we are designing a rough design, instead of this one we use certain tools called prototyping tools also for wireframe etc. So now we try to put this um, see the problem statements. So bulk enter we solved with multiple selection, and for weekly view we came up with a date range, and then we are trying to show only the current week, not the old records by default when they're loading it. And to simplify the timesheet entry very complex etc, and to record on the go mobile solution, and to simplify this time consuming part, what we are trying to say is, so building number we try to put Bangalore etc, and everything we are trying to give them as a template. So save as a template option we are trying to give them, so that if they had to autofill similar kind of for a whole week, if they had to redo, suppose 2 weeks at a stretch the same building center she's trying to access, so she'll open the template and she can refill this information. So that way it will be very much simplified, so you're able to get right. So this is one idea we have come up, but to articulate it to the client, so this is how we are planning to design it. Then we'll go for their acknowledgement. Sir, is it fine? So so how do we present to them? So we cannot present in an Excel or some way where that doesn't actually portray much to the end users. So for that we use some wireframe tools. So what tools we use and etc, just I'll just talk about. So this is a use case. So this, once we had a resume like a persona and requirements etc. Now in this case, then we can better jot down rest of the things. So now we can break down the application and classify whether if use case requires one more scenario, we can consider as this we can consider as a simple scenario, and medium complexity etc also we can consider based on the features they're expecting it. And complex is the one when you had to break down into multiple use cases. So in this case we did not get any problem statement where we have to break down into two use cases. So if you're breaking into two use cases, it's important to identify how much time it takes. So general question after requirement completes is customer asks us, sir, when can we deliver the application? So when can you expect? In Q1 will it be available for users, or in Q2? So effort estimation doing is also our job. When we get the requirements, using a prototype we'll try to understand, we break down the number of tasks involved. So here we tasks are four tasks are there. So the four tasks are like a mobile application, point to point. So all the pain points are our tasks. So all those like four different features that you can consider. So each task we have to give some man hours. So how many hours it will take for us to build that particular solution. So that way we can derive at an efforts as well. So for most of the cases, when the customer is expecting a solution in a very short span, it is recommended to go with Fiori elements. So Fiori elements are very easiest and very quick option to use standard options. So if you it falls under the standard layout which SAP has given. So all they want is a report. So L'Oreal brands, when I was mentioning it, and they had a sales report in their view. So we can go for a list report. List report will always come with a tabular view, and if you want more drill down of data, we can give that to work list application where it will have more filters on top of it. So if you're able to visualize it, or if not, I'll show you some sample whatever we have the application. So here we have this one, and then if you see this, we call it as work list application, where we have all the data as well as drill down of data, so you can filter the data, etc. For sales report, etc., we can go for this design where you have work list kind of this we call it as work list template, where we can filter data, etc., for based on supplier category, etc. So refining data, drilling down the data, it will be very nice way to drill down here. And if you want to export the data, sales report, etc., in Excel also, we can export the data. So you can filter based on category and you can export the data and you can mail to respective teams. So for analyzing reports, etc., sales, etc., worklist kind of scenarios will be useful. And on the other hand, if they have some more complex way, so this is achieved using Fiori elements. But the same scenario, if they are expecting more requirements, we can design it, more a tab approach, where there's like freestyle application. So freestyle way of managing products, how do we access is some, how many are available, in shortage are there, how many are out of stock. So the point of view has completely changed here. So here we are talking about finance. Here we are talking about maybe we are talking about managing the out of stock, which is out of stock and which we have to replenish, etc., availability, etc., we are trying to check. So we can give a tab structure. Then we have to build a freestyle application, whether if this is what they want to search, etc., and they want to filter it out, then availability, in stock, etc., we can show it in this fashion. So it's all about the point of view we are trying to look at. So the same solution can be built in a freestyle application and using Fiori list as well. So Fiori list will take very least amount of time, because it's all it takes is we have to map to the right template and we have to auto generate. So using annotations, we'll tweak around a little bit of places around. So end user quick delivery, they're expecting, try to use Fiori elements approach. They are the simplest way to go. When you're designing a freestyle application, you have to make sure that we are designing a right wireframe to it. So freestyle application, we need a wireframe, but whereas for Fiori elements, we do not need any wireframe to be designed precisely. Okay, it's optional if you want to design, but that's so for this case. Ideally, what we have to do is this is how the approach we have to follow. So once we have the persona template, that means requirements are we are have a clear idea. So we should start for execution of the project. We try to build a wireframe first. So for wireframe, etc., we have tools called Axure tool, Adobe XD, or you can use PPT as well, and if not, SAP Build tool as well. So there are like multiple tools, and for a MacBook we can use Sketch as well. So any tool you are free to use, and SAP provides support for multiple designing tools. So using any of these tools, we can build a wireframe. So the requirements, etc., with persona which we got, this one we can create some nice wireframe. Wireframe in the sense what it does means like we'll create mock-up screens. Okay, so outline, etc. So how it looks, I'll show you. So using that wireframe, if customer is want some realistic, then we can start building some prototype. This is what most of the times they call it as POC, proof of concept, etc. So why they spend this time is they do not want to discard the application after all effort. After 3 months or 4 months or 6 months of build time, if you say that no, this is not what we wanted, so unnecessarily all your efforts will be go for a toss. It will be discarded. So if you spend active time in building a prototype, so wireframe prototype will not take more than 3 or 4 or 5 days, max 5 days, if you ask me, for relatively small use cases. So nice wireframe will give end user a perspective how the solution is going to come out. So before building itself, we are giving them a flavor of, sir, this is how the UI looks, and this is how it's going to look. And if they want to have a first on hands on, then probably we can give a working prototype using some mock data. We can build some working prototype, and they can have the feel of how it's going to do by accessing this by themselves. One good aspect is we get more information. So they say, oh, I think this looks really nice, I think you solved all the problems. Then initially they were hesitant to tell us some more requirements, because too much of requirements giving might delay their actual building of the application. When they see this output, okay, I think it is very nicely put. Do we have some more requirements in our mind? Can we accommodate those as well? So such discussions will come only when they have a working wireframe, working prototype. So always do not stop at this stage. Most of the times what generally they tend to do is this whatever design they have come up, they will not show to the end user. They'll show it at the end of all building whole application, then they'll try to show. That will actually this is only half requirement given by the customer. If you ask me, most of the times customers won't tell us 100% of the requirement, because they feel that it will delay their delivery of the application. So they'll prioritize first requirement, which one we good to have. So after 6 months, they'll say, can we add some more features to this application? Okay, that will actually spoil the whole. Sometimes we have to discard most of the elements. After 6 months, their requirement will change completely. So if you have a working prototype, so customer will we openly ask all the requirements. Point number one. Point number two, will not will clearly understand what customer wants. They are articulated in terms of meetings, more regular meetings, etc. But after looking and after using the prototype, we'll get a, point of view that okay, this is what their true expectation. So now they'll refine the requirements. They'll say that no, this is not what we meant. If the idea which we presented, they do not like it, they might suggest us some more requirement. So they might say, no, I'm not interested in just a last week. I want a monthly view. Then probably we can suggest a whole calendar view, or they are free to select a date. Then probably we can select them date selection, etc. Or this whole idea itself they did not like, we can discard it and we can come up with new idea altogether. So this is how we have to approach the client when we get the requirement. Start building a CV like a persona, start building a wireframe, and then within the first week, get articulate all your ideas to the customer, get a sign off. Once it is signed off, that means it is official. They are confirming us to start building this solution. So they're like setbacks will be very less or minimalistic or zero, because they know what is their outcome going to be, and we know what we have to build as well. So it will be a proof for us that okay, this is how we have to start designing it. So randomly, instead of starting it, having a wireframe and designing it has lots of things. So presenting as a persona, we call it as discover phase, and designing a wireframe prototype, we call it as design phase. These are the two phases before the build of actual project build phase. Okay, these are the two things. Now we'll design. Now I have taken an example of managing products and sales report as two use cases for this particular scenario. And I using Azure or Adobe Build or SAP Build. These are the tools we have. So I'll show you design guidelines.
Those three are like paid versions, right?
Yes. So if we have different tools out there, SAP Build for two projects we can use free of cost. So SAP Build, I think sometime back once I have just mentioned this, but today we are actually going to start using it. This is SAP's own um,
Mm.
designing, wireframing, prototyping tool. Uh, this is not officially a very what you call, they are not very in-house only they are using it. They're not actually selling it very high time to all the customers, because they have lots of big plans for build tool. Still they feel that it is not yet ready for larger audiences. Okay, but
Mm.
for the few use cases, not for all use cases. So this they wanted to build this product, maybe I don't know, but right now for Fiori apps we can use this particular tool. So if you I'll show you a nice way around. There is one. So if you see here, this is how we can we have standard all the Fiori icons, etc. Everything we have it. We can straight away drag and drop, and we can try to present it. There is a gallery. So you can go to some standard examples they have. So here, if you can see some, you can select a few more. So these are like standard SAP Fiori, all the templates are etc. Some sample examples we have. So everything you can go and see how it is designed, and directly you can modify those designs as well. So this will, if most of the requirements, if anything, you have. So in this case, timesheet we are talking. So let me take this example. So you can select this particular timesheet, and here you can select here you have relevant files, etc. So like how we have discussed, right? There are like many other templates. What I discussed was one just template, personal template. So here they'll all those templates, etc. They'll present here as documents. Okay, so you can click on try it option, and this is how now the requirement which we discussed. If you see, it almost ticks all the boxes. Okay, you have a timeline of last week, weekly view, right? And you have all multiple weeks selection, etc. and duration, etc. They are selecting it, and the moment they click on it, we are able to auto populate certain data, etc. and duration. They can enter the details, and they can just submit and save, etc. Right.
Mm.
So week 14, week 15, so they can go back to some other week we are showing as a weekly view, and they can save it, they can favorite it. So this is what the templates kind of we are calling it as. So you can save it as a favorite. So all the times when you're trying to select this favorite, automatically these all will be portable. All you need to do is we have to enter, start entering, you know uh, you know had a meeting for change of migration activity, etc. Okay, so they can just key in, and they can just click on submit. So if they want to add multiple duration, etc., they can enter and they can submit. So it is done. So just 2 clicks, first screen and second screen. So this approach should not go beyond 3.
Yeah.
That is 113. So one use case, one application, maximum 3 screens. So if you are if I'm selecting it here, and if I'm going, this is my second screen. If I have to go one more screen, max 3 screens I have to go. If you're going at a toss like 3-4 screens, user will be, he'll not understand. Okay, which screen I have to go back now. So it will be very much confusing. So we should not complicate. Always all the tasks maximum 3 to 4, 5 clicks. 5 is a too horrible one, but maximum 3 clicks you have to ensure that he's able to do his task using Fiori application. That is minimalistic and simple design. So we have to improve their productivity. So very quickly they should be able to do the task. We should not make it very complex. It should be easy to understand. We should not give lots of descriptions, etc. If you see, there will not be any descriptions in general in any of the Fiori apps. All they talk about is self-understandable. Nobody has to look into some self guide, how to use this application guide, etc. By looking at it, they should be able to figure it out, how they can use, etc. Most cases. Okay, so this is how we can this is actually a prototype. This is not an application, if you ask me. Okay, everything looks like a real application. So this is a wireframe which is looks like a working prototype. So how did they use, and how did they build it? So if you see, um, we can click on, I can just sign in, and then we can click on clone. Me time it is loading. We have, so you can go to guidelines as well, go to SAP Fiori, and we have something called design stencils. Here you have you'll find something called resources. So this is design stencils, where we have all the prototype to build prototype, all the required files, etc. So SAP uses a font called their own font called 72. So it was established in 1972. So SAP has given SAP has started as a different font altogether. So we can change the fonts as well. So anything we can use, and so this is how the prototype, etc. These are the elements we have. So there's a standard way. These are the recommended, officially SAP recommended UI prototyping wireframing recommended tools. So for MacBook, if you're using Design Sketch, it is a paid version itself, and Azure also it's a paid version. It is for Windows or any other system. If you're using Azure RP, you can use. Right now we have a 30 days trial edition. You can download and you can try to practice for Azure RP. Adobe XD is free of cost. So there's a paid version as well, but Adobe XD is a free of tool. You can use it when any tool is I mean, you can use it. SAP provides stencils. They call it as this Fury kind of icons, templates, themes, etc. They call it as stencils. And if you are using Adobe XD, you can click on this, and here you can download this particular stencils, and you have to, after installing, all you have to do is upload this particular file. So once you upload it, you will get the stencils, etc. in this way. So this is a templates, they'll be added. So you can reuse these templates and you can modify and tweak around the templates, etc. Just like building an application, drag and drop all the controls, just like how we add a button, we can drag and drop and place it, etc. So this is how you'll be able to see in Adobe XD. It's just like wireframe handy, all the images, etc. You'll have it. Okay. If we are using Azure, etc. Also, it's the same for any platform. Uh, all the three are recommended. Even SAP doesn't recommend SAP build as on date. Okay, it feels it doesn't have more advanced features, because internally for SAP Fiori apps it works, but customers custom use cases it may not yet ready, because they might have a lot more things to play around. So SAP doesn't officially recommend, but for Fiori use cases we can internally use SAP build as well. So for in case of Azure, you can download Azure and then you can use it this way. So it's not mandatory that you have to use this. If you don't want to use also, it is fine. But at least some wireframe tool, if you use, you can better present your idea, and customer will have some first-hand visual aids. Like if we're talking without any visual aid, it doesn't actually gel with the customers. They don't understand what we are trying to portray. But if we give some rough draft kind of, so what I'll do is quickly, I'll use Azure and build for right now. You are free to use any tool. All the tools are same. So they'll have almost a common features, set of features. So here I have, without any stencils, if I had to design, I have designed it this way. One, I designed two use cases. One is reports and products. And the report, if I open, all I wanted is show a table with product details and a search option. So this is how I had tried to build this. And based on this design idea, then I think it got hanged. Okay, so if I have to translate into a actual application, this is how I'll be designing it. So if you see here, so here we report, I said, and sales report, it has a table and as such. So when I translate it into actual application, what we do is we provide a report and we'll give an option to download the report, and we'll get an option to search the records, etc. So prototype way, we'll present it this way. When I actually give it, we'll try to give them more features packed into it. So this is how we'll deliver the application. Likewise, for the sales, we have view products. So for the other use case, for viewing products, master detail, maybe we'll try to present it this way as a wireframe, and then so we'll present the wireframe this way. So managing products, then we'll design a solution like this. So managing products, etc. They can select individual data, etc. And this is using Fiori elements we have designed it. Whereas this one we have used a freestyle template. No matter what template, what approach we are using, end user problem we are solving or not is important. So we design a wireframe in this way, and we'll come up with a solution. So, and we'll design a wireframe for other use cases. How many other use cases we have? Try to design a wireframe, then we try to present it in a application point of view. So we're going to do it as a project for a complete scenario as well. But so in the build tool, this is a nice diagram which actually explains. So discover phase, what all we have to do is scope, refine the scope. If they talk if you had a 3 4 10 10 meetings for regarding requirement itself, then you have lots of inputs. Then the scope will talk about multiple aspects. So it will have essential as well as non-essential items. So you have to do some research. How do we do research? So in this case, persona, when we talked about, right, so they were talking about two elements, but so here they have talked about two elements like energy consumption and actual time spent. But this is how the meetings will be an actual also. They'll talk about lot many things, but at the final level they say, no, we do not want any solution for main goals. We want only for time managing. So that's how the conclusion will be. So if you from the day one you start building application for both the scenarios, you'll go for a toss. So we have to understand from customer itself, better understand what exactly they want. So we have to do our own, we have to ask lots of other questions, and we have to pinpoint what exactly they want us to build. So scope will, they'll talk about 10 requirements. In the research phase we'll come out that they all are interested in only two particular requirements, and we'll try to brainstorm, and then we'll try to synthesize it, and we'll come up with with internally within the team we'll ask our team. So if they're having a big larger team, your project manager could give some inputs, or your functional could give some inputs, so the rest of the team can give some inputs. So you'll collectively you'll synthesize, and we'll come up with an idea how to we'll design a solution to the customer. Then we'll design a prototype, and we'll show that prototype to the customer, and we'll validate our requirement understanding. So whatever we got in the scope and whatever we got their inputs, we'll show this prototype and we'll validate our understanding. So sir, this is what we understood, and we try to present in a wireframe. Is it okay for you for us to sign off? So once they sign off, we start building it. So this is a phase we start building our application. Then the developer test, unit testing we do. Then the functionals, etc. They do the user acceptance test, UAT, etc. Then finally we'll deploy into QA environment, and then prod, etc. So the various landscapes. That's how we start deploying it. So this is a kind of graph generally all projects they follow. In the build tool they have given this approach, and I really like the way it is presented. For any kind of application we can follow this flow. To break down simply, use one persona, use one wireframe, then start building your application. This is the simplest way to understand.
Mm.
Clear?
Yeah.
So this approach, no matter what tool we are using, etc., customer will be happy because they are not seeing some random output, etc. So is my tool. So I'll just quickly show how this looks, and probably you can give it a try as well. And we'll do one detail complete project, etc. I'll start from Monday, and so this is how we can ensure that we can design. So Axio tool looks this way. If you open it this way, the simplest way, there is one more better way. You can use pen and paper. So I'll show you one more nice way of designing wireframes as well. So I have, let me see. See, we can take a pen and paper, and we can present our idea as well. Okay. So we can present, so in this case, what I do is simple way. I'll just on a paper, same thing. I'll try to write in on a paper saying that this is my report, etc. And even I can give a what all elements I have to present, etc. So you can take a nice pen and paper, and okay, tab structure. We'll give for one application tab structure, customer tab, order tab, etc. So we can write in pen and paper, and both build tool and Axure tool. What we can do is they support uh, even images as well. If you see here, if this is logged in, so I'll use clone it option. I'll show you both how they look. So I selected the timesheet, right? I have just signed. After signing in, I just selected option to clone. Now this is how individual images they'll appear it. Okay. If you click on it, you can edit this complete layout. So if you see here, so this is each of the element are if I want to place a button, etc. So all the controls frequently used, all the UFA controls will be there. So if I want to add a button link, etc.
And those icons that we see there are also as part of the icon library, right?
Yes, yes, yes. These all are UFA libraries itself. UFA application, what all we have, same, but these are just prototypes. They are not working one.
Mm.
So we can just like how we are adding it. So using here, you can add the text. So this is like save button, etc. So
Wow.
you can add it, and you can use any icon you want to use it. You can just select, different icons, etc. All the SAP libraries, what are icons? So it's like true SAP. It's meant for Fiori applications of build tool. You'll have all the same controls. So whatever you're pressing it, you can actually use the same controls to build your code as well. Because this same calendar control, whatever we're using here, it exists in our UF as well. So calendar date interval is here, suppose. So I can put this as calendar date interval. So if you see, this is how it appears. So this is calendar interval. Now I actually added one more. So I am deleting it. So if you use a calendar here, so this is how the calendar looks. So this is a full calendar. This is a interval. So only 1 week, etc. If you want to show, this is how it looks. So here, if you see, we can add around the controls, and it's like organizing your controls in a neat and effective way. You have the limited space. We have to make sure that we are using in a organizing in a better way. So this is one control. This is one control. This is one control. This is a table control. This is in a form as such. We have a form with two partitions. We have a calendar control, and here we have a list of buttons, actions, etc. And on the footer we have some buttons. We have 4 controls here altogether: calendar, form, and then you have a table. That's it, right? So here we can play around with each of the properties, etc. and activity. And if you want to load some data as well, so we can straight away Excel data, etc. we can use, and straight away we can upload data. So we have something called click on data editor. So in this case, so I'll show you how to use this tool, etc. and how to add data. So here we have if you go to here, we can edit samples as well. So directly you can enter one more record. If you want to enter, I can create one more test data. So there we want to create some mock data. So creating mock data from this is very easy. If you use any other tool, the problem is you have to drag and drop each data, and you have to paste it as an image, etc. But using this tool, we can create the data like um, chief design discussion, etc. and hardware design, etc. we can say yes, UX design in progress, etc. So not only this way, we can use Excel as well. So we can directly import, or if you have an Excel, we can prepare and we can upload as well whole data. I'll show one in detail way how to do, etc. So we can import directly Excel, and all the test data also will be loaded, and we can view once again the data in the samples view. We can view all the data as well. So creating mock data with realistic data, always use realistic data. Don't use junk data in your mock screens. Always try to use realistic data. That is very important. So because customers will relate to the use case as if they are using it right now. So when we are demoing it, if you use the realistic data, so they'll have right questions. If you use some random data, it is always not at all advisable. If you use some ABC, XYZ, etc., people won't be able to relate at all. So they are not interested in the UI, they are interested in their business. So whether this is solving our day-to-day task or not, they'll try to understand. They'll understand only if they use, if we show them realistic data, they can put themselves in that situation. Okay, if we are using it, I think this field is missing now. Now, if you put some building ID, okay, they'll ask the question, where is the building ID? Then we'll say, sir, building ID is not required, because if you select the location, automatically we are handling internally, and we'll be managing the building number. If you want us to show the building number, we can show the building number as well. So we can discuss this way. You're understanding, right? How we can present our point of view, and we have a healthy discussion with the client. Okay. This is one best way. So this is one tool where we can use. Same thing we can use Acture as well, I'm trying to say. So here I said in the paper sketches also, in this also supports paper sketches. We can import all our, if I select a new prototype here, here we have an option to upload the images, etc. option. So here if you see upload files, so if I can upload my own files, so these files, and then we can create an interaction as well. So internal team, see, suppose we are discussing with internal team, we are not actually discussing with the customer. Internal team, we are trying to understand. So this is how I have come up with idea. Is it okay? Sometimes our manager or internal team itself might say, no, this is not, let's not show this to our customer. You have designed all your wireframe. Now when you're trying to demo, within your team, they say, no, this is not how you should show. You have to scratch everything, right? So to convince our internal team, first of all, at least, you can use a pen and paper and use this prototyping tool. How do we do? So for such a case, this is how we can come up with. So we'll first, a simple white paper, we'll just do our rough sketches, and we'll just import our images files. Okay. So we'll just show them the narration that this is how I'm trying to design a wireframe. So if the internal team has some more inputs, we'll in pen and paper we'll try to present those inputs, and then we can try to show it. So how it looks, just I'll show it in a while. I think we are running out of time. So here we have something called interactions. So if you see, if I click on this area, I can select this drag and drop, and I can click on map it is. And if I click on this title or this style, etc., so I can just map it to this section. Okay. And if I click on this tab structure, like I said, no, if we are tab structure, so this one I'll go to customer tab, and if I click on supplier, I can go to supplier tab. It's just a very simple way, and all I have to do is preview now, done. So you'll get a nice interactive prototype. So in a paper you have presented, you click, it will be interactive prototype is ready. See, now I have my application. Now I click on this, it will take me to my search application. If I click on product name, customer, etc. So where are the interaction we added it. So accordingly, the interactions we add, it automatically comes. So here we are getting very instantly the value of our design. Whatever we are presenting it, we are trying to present it here. I haven't added any interaction. So if I add an interaction here, so it'll come back to this. Now if we do a preview here, so in few clicks we are able to actually we see in a tile we have, then we have a work list application. Now I click on product, we have to view. If I click on customer tab, it appears. And if I click on customer supply tab, etc. So we are able to simulate our paper design in a more meaningful way, right? So you can show this hotspot so that you, wherever you have added that click option interaction, so that we can view it. Here there's no, this is end page, last page. So simple internally for the team, you can use this, and within this tool they have for the paid version, etc. They have option to share this via option, send it to, etc. And there itself you can get the feedback. But I'm not going to all those things. But basic purpose why use build tool is wireframe on a pen and paper. Your idea, you present it within your team. Show this working prototype, they'll be impressed. So if they have any inputs, start adding it. Once they are clear it, then use the clone option, etc. Where the way we have designed, start building the wireframe using our Fiori stencils, etc. And you can use existing available templates, etc. So that is a recommended approach. Okay. Same thing, activity, all the actions can be done in Azure or Adobe. Everywhere it is the same. Here if I use, if you see here, I'll just show. Here you have different libraries. Same like in Builder, how we have buttons, etc. Maybe here not SAP tools. So if you download that stencils and you upload, I haven't uploaded it, then you'll get all those buttons, etc. which are available in UFI. Just like Build tool, how you have those, you'll get it. So here if I want to add any tile, etc. Now I can add the tile here. And here also we call it as interactions. Now on click of this, if I want to add, I'll click on this new interaction, and on click or tap, I'll say open link. And here if I create a multiple pages here, I can link to this page. So I go to list report page. Okay. Now when I click on this, it will go back to that particular page. I can drag and drop same images here, and I can create interactions as well. So now in order to see a demo, I'll click on preview, and we'll do a detailed access, but I'm just trying to give you, no matter the tool, everywhere you have the similar features. So you need not worry about which tool you're using. Now I click on this, now it will take to my list report. The whatever the report we have it, we are able to see. So this is how we can create a live working prototypes in a very quick way. See, all this doesn't require more than 2-3 days, but this will have very much huge impact on your design. You will reduce your rework unnecessarily. If design is freezed, then you are free, right? You will not have any modification in between. You can concentrate on your development. If this is not clear, when you start building it, they'll ask for a changes. No, remove this particular, this is not as per our design. And it will have a lots of commenting, uncommenting the code, and it will be very much buggy and messy. So to avoid this, we follow these best practices to simplify our whole experience of building an application. So this is how we build a great app. Then, okay, I think we are done for today. You can probably practice, give it a shot, any of the tool. You can. This is like this. It doesn't require any technical coding or anything. It's like
Mm.
you can play around with it. I will do a detailed exercise as well, but to give an outline, any tool, it will have the same features. You can use your pen and paper, take any use case, and try to use upload images and try to add interactions and see. So you can have to click on preview, then you are good to go. Okay. Any questions so far? Or
I just had a quick question on the. So I'm actually practicing the forms, and
yeah.
so I'm trying to like put like a fragment, right? I'm trying to learn the fragment approach. So is there any place in the? I mean, I tried to look in the UI5, the sample section and walkthrough session, but is I couldn't find much help there. But or maybe I'm not looking in the right place. So it's like, I had a view one and a view two.
Mhm.
Okay. So view two, I wanted to sort of like, put it into a different, I mean, it has like a small, so it's a form page. Okay. And I
Okay.
have like three columns. And in third column, I just wanted to add like a micro chart. So I put the micro chart in the view two. Then I
Mhm.
try to go into the view one, and then in the JS file, I'm trying to write, like this dot get dot view and etc. And then pretty much like copied the code from the sample section. But the problem is it's not. It says that the fragment is not defined. I keep getting that error. So is there any place in that
Oh,
API or SDK kit where I can go see how they are? You know.
understood. Okay. So, okay. For the fragments, I think the error what you faced, I understood. Typically, okay, I'll show you some detailed exercise, walkthrough exercise as well. One where you have to fall back, and at the same time, I'll tell you what could be possibly problems
Mm,
can be minimized in case of fragments. So fragments are like external files. They are not specific files. So it is doesn't come with our standard MVC structure. That's the reason. If you are not using the right context path, etc., you might end up, with such errors where it
mm,
is not able to load. So that could
mm.
be one possible scenario. I think where we have done fragments access. Do you remember? I don't remember
I
in
think it.
manage
Yeah, I think it. On my. I'll show
or
you.
okay.
I think that.
Maybe list report. I think when in the forms I was explaining. I think right. So forms. I think it's freestyle
Simple,
application.
yeah, forms, form
Form.
1 and form 2.
Okay. 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 I'll just I don't know any application is fine, but if you can relate, it should be fine. So in here, let me. So fragments are very useful. So they'll reduce our work a lot. So we can carry them to multiple pages, etc. They like two approaches. I'll tell you the simplest one as well as some. If you understand both the things, you can play around with whichever approach you're comfortable.
Hmm.
I think it is loading in
I was
this.
able to create like a nice, I was able to practice pretty much all the screens and everything, except like this part.
Okay, 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 fine, great. I think I see if you're practicing, it's really great. Uh, Okay, I think this is the access, correct access only we are in. So now in this case, if you see, form is not part of our view or folder structure. If you have added in view folder or you have created a util file, etc. These are like external file. So wherever you have added this form fragment, you need to note that path. Okay. So in this case, so if here I have added a form. So in this case, form where did we add? We add it in view folder, right? So
How do I know the path though? It's
correct.
it's like
Correct.
the one before the fragment, right?
Yes, yes. So I'll tell you. So now in this case, our project name is form access, right? So our
Mm,
name starts with form access now. Okay. In your case, whatever the name, module path name you have given, right?
mm,
That is your name.
mm.
Followed by, actually, before to this, we'll have a namespace. So for this, we have
Right.
given a namespace to UX. So UX dot form name. Okay.
Mm,
What are your module name? Then you need not to give web app because
mm,
UX dot form name itself means that we are referring to web app.
mm,
Then in whichever folder you have placed. Suppose in this case I have placed in view folder form fragment. You can, if you have placed it in util, anywhere you can place it, because these are external files. So if you're placing in here, you have to make sure that folder name. So in our case now path will be ux dot ux sorry, what is this name, ux dot form access dot view will be our path name.
Okay.
Okay.
I think I may have got okay.
Okay, fine. So that's the initial check. What I have suggested was, don't add any control. Just add it. Always write just one line of code. Now in this case, what we'll do is, uh, I'll show you the where it might have gone wrong. So one, you have to define an ID. So if ID is defined, if you're using multiple fragments, then its ID is very important. Make sure you define ID to the form fragment. So to that, so that uniquely we are referring to this particular form fragment. So if I have to call form.fragment.xml, even this name also it matters. So if you have wrongly named it as in different way, then also it can go wrong. So in this case, name, if you see small case dot fragment dot xml, right? In this case, view will be view.xml, whereas fragment will be whatever name you give, form or form1, form2, etc. dot fragment.xml. See, you have to create a new file which will extend in this way. So in this case, I'll say form product, etc. And then you give it dot, you should say fragment dot xml. So if you give a wrong name, then also your file may not be understand that it is a fragment. So this extension alone tells us that it is a fragment. Okay. So now in this case, what I'll do is I created a product fragment, right? So for simple check, always do not write all code. So always do it in a one at a time. So building blocks, like we have to test it. So if we know where the error went in the initial stage, so we need not to discard the whole page. Now I'll just add this simple thing, and I'll try to load this particular form. So maybe we can just add one ID as well, so that I'll just add this much structure. So if I have added only fragment definition, you can even remove this libraries not required, and I can just create I just created a container called dialog, and I have given an ID. Okay, for just to understand that it doesn't look empty, I'll give one simple title, some title, so that it should open a dialog and it should have a title called address. So dummy dialog it has to open that much. That's it. So I haven't given anything in the fragment. So this is how I define, and we gave an name. I'll give it a unique name so that it will not conflict. So product dialog. Always, if you hang any item, have it very unique. It should, this ID should not be used anywhere in your application. Then also it can cause you errors. Okay. Now in the controller, what I have mentioned. So if you are using it this way, go to your controller logic. So one important point is fragment. If you want, like in your case, you said you are using a detail page, right? So if you are using see, form can be used in multiple pages. If you want to use it in detail page, you have to go to detail controller.
I mean,
And
does it have to be always dialogue, or can it be like in my case, it was a micro chart there. I thought, yeah, like put a button in the view one, and then when you click on that button, it should call from the fragment and display the, the micro chart.
okay, it's good to have a in anything you can have, not only dialog or panel, any container you have to have. Now I think you have directly placed a control. The problem with control, how do you close the dialog?
Okay, got it.
Okay, so
Got it.
we need some user actions, right? So that close, see, just like how we have close, this is a container
Mm,
which allows us to minimize, close, etc. So these are
mm,
like containers which will give that outer borders kind of thing, which
mm,
it is
mm,
just dummy, but
mm.
it is good to have, because you can add the close buttons, etc. If you have this container, so inside dialog you can
I
probably
also
place
tried
this.
the generic tile,
Okay.
like you put like generic tile here, and then you put a button on the view one, and when you click on the button, let's say, something, and then you click on it, and it will then show the tile.
Yes, we can show that generic tile,
But
but to
in
make sure the
all the
generic tile
cases,
library, you have to have loaded it rightly.
but in all the cases, ID, no matter what container we are using, we need to have the ID there, huh?
Yes, correct.
Got
So
it.
because controller will not understand which location we are asking it to load. Right now, we know that fragment is in view folder or util folder. How does the controller know where that file is?
Mm.
So for that, we say this is the address. ID is an address. Boss, this is a location you have to go and load your form fragment. So
Mm.
we are trying to say that this is the address of it. ID is an nothing but an address to the runtime. So it understand when we say a product dialog ID. Okay, we are referring to this form fragment which is located in util folder, and this is a location we are trying to refer to. So we are trying instructing. So always make sure, no matter how small label or anything, always have an ID. ID is the only go-to place by which we can ask runtime to fetch those records or data or anything. Okay.
Mm.
Now once you have this, now in your case you have to. So fragments will not have their own controller. Whichever page we are using, that corresponding controller only we have to use. Now I
And we
have
don't have to
mentioned.
declare fragment in the function, right? Within the function or as a parameter, we don't have to add that, right?
Yes.
Like message toast, we added message toast up to the into the parameter section, right? We don't have to add that fragment there.
Yeah, I'll tell you that is the second approach I was talking. So same thing, what they're doing is,
Sorry, I'm
uh,
jumping the gun.
no, file.
Mm.
So see, we need to have that curiosity. See, when you are learning it, so that's how we'll be learning it.
Thank
Uh,
you.
uh,
You
so
understand that always, you know. Otherwise, I would have gotten scolding now. Like, shut up.
no, see, because if you're asking questions, I'll be more interested because you're learning. If you're someone is learning, I can actually tell you a number of ways. But if you're
Mm.
not able to follow the first approach, if I tell you two approaches, you'll be, why
Confused, yeah.
am I talking about so many approaches? Why can't I simply tell the easiest one? Okay. So when you ask me, I'll tell you multiple ways. So any cases, but always I'll try to give the simplest one. If you want more, always I'll suggest you multiple ways.
Mm.
So if you we take any dialogue itself, so dialogue has I think any control you can take. Many places these fragments will be used. Mm. If I take this dialogue example where they have used the dialogue, right? Might be they can see why. Like I said, any pop-up generally they have to go with fragments. So fragments are straightly related with pop-ups. Okay,
Mm.
they are one way a pop-up. You can call it as a pop-up. So here, if you see, chances of them are, I think they have defined in a button. So instead of a fragment here, instead of defining in the view, they have written the second approach called they have defined it in a controller. So the fragment, everything they're writing in a JavaScript. Okay.
Mm.
So what they're doing is the moment we click on this button, okay. So they're writing instead of writing in view. So it can be written in view first approach, or it can be written in completely in JavaScript itself. So they have written in JavaScript. How they have written? If the moment they are clicking on this button dialog, now we have pressed on this dialog, right? So in this function they have written the logic. So if I go to this function, so this is a function. So in this function, how they have written, if you see, same new dialog, what have we written here? We also have written dialog, right?
Mm.
Okay. Instead of this is how the any function we define, right? So new function, open braces, curly braces, and they have given a title. What did we define here? Same title. So this is one syntax. If you want to define in a JavaScript, this is how the syntax looks like. Okay. Now if they added a content here, how do we add the content? See, in control, if you want to add content, you have to add content this way. If you want to add the same thing, I have to add content tag this way.
Mm.
Okay. So this is more understandable to us as a user. Okay. That's why I recommend using view, because you can relate the structure. In the here, you will not be able to relate your structure. And here they have added list. So content within this, they have used a list control. So we can use all the list properties. We can define an ID to this. We can define my list, and we can refer to the API, and we can put all the list properties. In this, we have object list, etc. So all the lists which we're using it, and
Mm.
then afterwards, what they have added after content. So they have, see, each one is comma. That means these are dialog properties. So for the dialog, we are adding these properties, etc. Right? So we have a begin button and end button. So how do we define a within begin button? They had a button. So begin button is like title content. Begin button is one more property. So we had content, then just like content, we have to present one more as begin button. So here we'll write, this is how the syntax we write. And we have one more called end button. The same structure in Vue, we write it this way, end button. Okay, but within begin button, they have written something called new button, right? So within content, they have written new list. So within button, they said new button. So again, new button means how we define. So inside begin button, we'll write no, just a button. So even so inside button again, they have given a properties called type, text, and press event. So nothing but, so button we have type, button type emphasized, etc. And we have press event, and then I think some text. Yeah, text. The button name text would be as okay. You'll get the same output no matter you're writing in viewer. It is your comfortable. If you're comfortable in this, you write in this way. You are comfortable in writing in this way, you write in this way. Nobody is going to ask why you have written in this way. So both approaches are there, and whichever you're comfortable, you can prefer your own way. So, and one more button similarly in the end button, we have one more button called close, and they have text and press event. So I'm going to within the end button. So here I'm going to add this particular line of code, and I say here close, right? The same logic if in Vue, if you write, this is how it looks, and the same logic if you write in controller, this is how it looks. You have both options now, approach one and approach two. You can use whichever approach you are comfortable, but you need to understand that this is what they're trying to do. So they create a variable called o default dialog. Okay, so and they have created this whole logic. All it does is this part. Okay, this from line number 5 to line number 19 is same as highlighted one, line number 24 to line number 47. So you can write this syntax or that syntax. Now what they have done is this whole section. So we have placed in a fragment definition, right? So same thing they are doing. They are putting in a variable called this.o dialog, default dialog. Okay. So dialog, the moment we are clicking it, they are creating a dialog. So the moment you click on the, in this case, the button we are pressing it, they're creating a dialog, new dialog this way. So dialog they are storing in this particular variable. If not dialog means if this exclamation mark means if dialog is not loaded, if not this dot dialog, then load this dialog. So what is the meaning of this? If dialog is not loaded, then add this dialog control to this particular variable, this dot o default dialog. That's the meaning of this whole logic. You're understanding, right? So the moment we click on a button, it will check whether dialog is loaded or not. In this variable, if it is empty, then it will load this particular whole code in this particular this dot dialog. So once we have the code, so but here we have added a dialog. So they haven't used a fragment in this case. So if you use a fragment, how the code looks is like this is how it will look. So similarly here we are using, if you see whole fragment logic, we are writing it here.
Yeah, right in that line is where I'm getting the error.
Yeah, that means this is an issue. Your path is incorrect. If you see now what we have previously discussed, so UX is our namespace, then form access, then in which folder this fragment is there. In our case, it is in Vue. So then we have form2. So what I do is I'll just make a copy of this. I'll now we created a product fragment, is fragmented. I'll try to load that fragment. So I'll write it as, give it a name called on product fragment, a name. And what for name we have to use for this form product name? So it is UX form view, and here our name is, we have to just change this name. Form case also, it's very important. So if the case is wrong also, it can go. You need not to define dot fragment dot XML. You can just say form form product, that's it. And this is just the code. You need not to write anything else. All you need to do is correct only this particular line. If you're correcting this line, now this function, when it has to be called, on the view, when we click on certain action, right? So what is that action? So we have to define it. I think in this case, our view, main view, I'll create one more button. So I'll say S button. I'll give a press event. So we'll paste this one and give a description to that button. So we'll say as manage product. If we run this, ideally on click of this, we should be able to load our fragment, and a fragment should contain the same logic whatever you have seen in the here, the same thing we have written here. So we should be able to see this. Let's see. So we can see, we can follow any approaches. So there they have used only dialog. The same applies to this as well. Maybe I think it says some error. Let's see. Maybe any libraries we haven't loaded, right? It could probably ask for some libraries. Okay, same file not found you're getting, right? Same error.
No. I mean, can we go into the debug mode? I remember, I know that screen pretty well. So it exactly shows us, right, where which line it is showing the error.
Okay. So you want to, okay, debug more. Okay. Actually,
I
okay,
mean, like how you showed
just
me in the screen. Yeah, this one. And then I pressed that curly bracket thingy at the bottom, and it showed. So for me, it showed, like, at that line number 52. That is where it kind of stopped and said, like, fragment reference error, uncaught reference error, fragment not defined.
okay. I
Even
think
when
that
I changed the path.
okay. So let me check here. So I think dialog list, etc.
Emphasized is emphasized spelling. Oh, that doesn't matter.
No, that is fine. Okay, this I can track that as well. Would be sometimes any typo error can also can cause any errors. I think here only dialogue etc. So there is no other library. So these are M libraries only. I was just checking if libraries are correct or not. Remove emulator. So here execution it comes. In this case, it shows as undefined because it's not yet loaded. Now we come back in. So here now we are loading the form.
Yeah.
So here it came. So if you see uh, fragment etc. It is available. So in the ODE, if this is
Mm,
available,
mm.
then only it came. If there is an error, it will not come to here. It will
Yeah,
throw an
I
error.
had I had like a red circle with an X mark on
Then
it.
here it is wrong with the path name could be wrong or
Mm,
ID is not defined. If you have not defined ID, because it needs ID as well as name. So we have to
mm,
define some unique ID. Either ID is missing or either the form path is incorrect. So if this
mm,
is successful, then if it executed successfully, in this case it executes successfully. So our path is correct, our ID is correct, and the fragment is loaded actually. Okay. Now it says like, do you want us to open it? So the moment we ask to open, so I think it is not opening it. So let me see what it's resource UX form access view from could not be loaded from view form fragment check for loader actions. Okay, it says
file name.
dialog invalid XML. Oh, okay, I think invalid XML and says, I mean view somewhere typo I have it. Core fragment definition.
We don't have to repeat the libraries, right? Anyway, it will give us error, right? It just need to be on the main library, right?
Yes. We need not repeat the libraries, but what are libraries we are using in this particular form, we
Here,
have to.
yes, got it.
That's it. So here it says some error in the form. So we are trying to, recheck what exactly. So this is, I think, this index file. So we can ignore this. So you don't get carried away with what all errors we have it.
Mm.
So because here I think I tweaked certain index, so that is fine. So as long as the current page, whatever we are working on, if it is fine, we are good. I think here file not
The
found.
uncaught error. Oh, yeah.
Something object, so we can just check on this error details as well, object.error load action. So we see here we have to be very careful. So here it clearly mentions us one or the other clue. So this is like puzzle where we find, see, it shows lots of error, but this all is not required. This we know.
Yeah.
This is our whatever code we have written.
Yeah.
It says this is a line which is important. Invalid XML. That means our error is not in the controller. So if you are looking at the wrong place, so there is nothing to do with at the controller page. It says
Mm.
at form fact. Maybe the name invalid XML not what passes reason error. I think somewhere. Let me check. Let's keep
So it's in the
also.
XML file, huh?
Yes. Okay. Dialogue. We had content and then basic structure. So that's the reason even uh, without any control, once we start testing it, then will library issue or etc. Those all doubts gets clarified. Yeah, I think see where is the content close? I have opened the content, but I haven't closed the content. I think I have closed it somewhere here.
Yeah, you got it.
So should have please it. We go with empty. Let's is it updated? I think close is inspect. It says invalid still. Okay, something else is also missing. It's strange. Is it any typo in fragment definition? No, fragment definition is correct. There's very minimalistic code. There is no
Yeah,
actually written
yeah.
at all. Mm,
Fragment definition did it has a close? Oh,
yeah,
it did.
no, it is the same thing. There is nothing change as such. Fragment definition.
I think it yeah.
Dialogue. We have dialogue. Dialogue. Yes, dialogue is also nice. Dialogue. I think we have the structure is right. There is no mismatch with the structure.
Okay, no error, right?
I think now it is coming. Maybe I think all I changed is that heading of fragment definition. Okay, now it
Right.
is coming if you see.
Mm.
Maybe what did we change? I did not change anything actually. It's the same
And
fragment
you
definition.
added something here, those
This
libraries here.
layout core library is it expecting? Let me check. That will those are not required because we haven't used anything. It's just a dialog control. Dialog control is part of M, right?
Mm.
So those are not required. Maybe it could be because of cache also. It might be stuck up. So sometimes that's the reason we have to clear the cache.
Mm.
Oh, no, it is not coming. Another second. Strange. It's not coming. Okay.
Yeah.
Layout is it requires layout. Uh, what more library is it expecting?
I think the
Core
I don't know.
library it is expecting. 1 second. Here, remove this. Yes, it is expecting core library. Okay,
Oh,
so that's the reason. Even I think, see it. I think fragment definition. This, yeah. How can I miss it? See, fragment definition. We have named it as core.
oh, Oh, okay.
And we are missing that core library itself. How will it identify whether it is a fragment definition?
Wow,
You
I
understood,
learned
right?
how to troubleshoot now.
Right. So we are see that's a like very silly mistake to do. See, it's not actual error. So what we try to see, we removed all the code. We have defined the first line of the starting line as core, but we did not load that library. We are checking out all the errors, etc.
Yeah, but
Okay.
you did it with like calm and cool. I would have been like, throwing the laptop in the air and going.
It will be very silly mistake, but in this case we understood, right? So we are first line itself we are trying to say this fragment definition, and we are not loading that library. So we are looking at dialog library and we are not looking at fragment definition library. Okay. See, most likely now you understood, right? So
Yeah, I
it will
I
take.
think I may have to add that. That is exactly why I was getting error.
Correct. So I think that controller is the same. So there is no difference here. All you have to make sure ID and name, and then you have to just make sure that you have these two libraries. Okay, these are the base bare minimum. Once you try with this dummy shell, if you're getting this dummy shell,
Yeah.
then you can improve upon like microchart or generic tile. So you have to generic tile library you'll add. You'll use that control. Microcharts library, then microchart control. It's just adding within this content,
Mm.
right? Okay, clear right now fragment. Okay, the
Yes.
documentation if you want still uh, here fragments. Yeah, this is exercise dialogues and fragments. So step number 6. So you could type fragments. You have for reading part here you'll have different fragment. Now JS script you have to use this one. So this is an exercise, same exercise what we have done. Similar kind of exercise they'll tell you how to do etc. Okay, so the same line of code what we have detailed now, similar kind of fashion they'll explain.
Mm.
So this is one you can refer to this description and along with what are access we have done now.
Mm.
Similarly for in JavaScript and two approaches now you have it, right. So this is reusing UI parts. So fragments section you have to refer to this section. In this
Mm.
section they'll explain us how to use if you are using HTML fragment, HTML also we can use as a fragment the
Mm.
content. And
Mm.
now what we use is XML. So this is how we have defined in XML. You can use what is given in samples is JavaScript. So these are the two ways of writing. Here, how do we load libraries, etc. You are familiar, right? So
Mm.
on the top, we add the libraries, and so either you can use this approach or you can use XML approach. So both are either way we can follow. So this is where and more details like if you want to understand, see here they clearly explain use core.fragment.load. This is a method if you're from JavaScript if you have to load. They'll explain how to XML if you are doing it, how to do in detail explanation they'll give you.
Mm.
So JavaScript XLE or this one XML if you are using it, how to programmatically load etc. So complete documentation also will be explained here.
Mm.
Okay. So
What does people usually follow though, like JS or XML? I know you asked me this question some time back, and I was like, I stick to JavaScript. But looking at this, I'm like, I'll rather be in X. I think I still stick to XML.
see it's see as per a framework or standard way always there will be multiple approaches. There is no one single approach, but
Mm.
which are we are comfortable, which we are able to understand. See end user see our goal is to have a form or which will content. So nobody
Mm.
is going to ask you whether you have used XML or JavaScript. The both
Mm.
output will be the same. Okay.
Mm.
If you're comfortable with XML, we have to stick to with XML. If you're comfortable with JavaScript, certain cases there could be an exception case where in UI we cannot do it. Maybe at see there will be a case where only for few users you want to show this button. Okay.
Mm.
Then you'll write the logic in such a way so that in JavaScript only you can write the logic.
Mm.
You're getting
Got
it
it.
right.
Yeah.
So it is like we'll choose an approach based on the scenario at hand. So 80% of the cases I recommend to go with XML because there you can figure it out what you're doing it exactly.
Mm.
Okay, it
Mm.
is more like HTML, so it is very easy to understand the code.
Correct. Yeah.
JavaScript, it is like it's a nested structure. It will be like loops and loops. So if you miss out a square, curly bracket, etc., you'll not figure out
Yeah,
what's going wrong and
it's
where
such a
exactly.
pain in the neck because it's like getting caught in a maze. Um, but yeah, over a period of time with experience, it will come. But
So for this only for Fury elements we have seen the wizard. So same reason they have given a wizard. SAP what
mm,
this is trying to. they'll create as a nested structure. All you have to write is the logic.
Mm.
In the wizard, if you notice fear elements, they have given us the they using wizard you are giving the name, function, etc. It is creating this whole shell, etc. They are asking
Mm.
us to write the inside body whatever logic we want to write. They are asking us to write the logic. Only this part we are concentrating on logic.
Mm.
Always write one piece of line at a time. Like
Mm.
if you're writing one function, just focus on one function. So button in this submit box, like manage products, you are focusing on, just focus on manage products. If you try to test it all after writing all the logic, if you try to run, you may not know where error exactly. It could be a valid product, it could be a form. You'll not understand.
Yeah.
JavaScript one at a time. View your wish. You're
Mm.
comfortable, do it, or any way we can do.
Yep.
Okay, I think we are short and long. Uh, tomorrow
Yeah,
we'll not
absolutely.
tomorrow. I
Sorry,
know
I took
Monday.
up a lot of time, but this was very helpful.
I think you can practice water concept. From Monday, we'll start a project. So I'll give you two projects, and in the
Mm.
project, we'll take this use case, which we will try to build a prototype wireframe. Then we'll start building a complete real-time project kind of thing, and we'll
Mm.
try to fall back and see any missing concepts other. Then we'll cover on and then and there,
Mm. Mm.
and we'll use a real approach. How in
Yeah,
real time we'll use it. We'll try to go that approach.
sure.
Okay,
Thank you
happy to.
so much.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Yeah, thanks.